There is a well-known opinion that Tzaar Baale Chaim, bringing suffering to animals, is a Torah prohibition, a biblical prohibition. The question is, where did Chazal learn this prohibition from? It's mentioned many times in the Talmud, but where, which specific psukim, which specific laws is this learned from? The truth of the matter is that when we say there are 613 commandments in the Torah, there are of course a lot more commandments. As the Vilna Gaon quotes his brother, that the Torah is full of all kinds of instructions and various types of advice on how to live a life, but there are specific 613 separate commandments, which different Rishonim counted differently. There are all kinds of disputes about what's considered a separate commandment and what is not. But this is not so important to know what's considered one of the 613 commandments and what isn't. The important thing is that you could learn all kinds of things in the Torah, and in particular, different sages saw a hint to the prohibition of Tzaar Baale Chaim in a few different places, one of which is in our Parsha, in our weekly reading, Ki Tetze. When the Torah says you should not work with two animals together, the example of the Torah is a bull and a donkey. The two animals that are plowing or doing some other work together, this is a prohibition of the Torah. But the question is why? As usual, the Torah just gives the law, tells us the law, but does not tell us the reason for the law. And there are all kinds of possible suggestions. They're not mutually exclusive. There could be more than one suggestion of what the reason is. And one of the possibilities is that it has to do with Tzaar Baale Chaim. It's difficult for animals of different kind to work together. And in particular, a number of sages write that the bull, since it's a ruminating animal, is constantly eating, meaning it looks like it's eating, it's chewing all the time. You know, the idea of ruminating animals, the kosher animals, they're the ones chewing its cud, meaning it eats a lot of grass, and then this grass goes to one of the stomachs. It has a lot of stomachs, usually 4 stomachs, and it stays there for a while, and then a kind of group, a kind of ball with semi-digested grass is formed, and it goes back through a complex system, through the neck, through the throat, goes up to the animal, and it starts chewing it again. And after it chews it a second time, it sends it to a different stomach. Look how complex this is. And of course, this is one of the types of kindness Hashem did to these types of animals. These are animals that are usually afraid of predators, so they can eat a lot at once and then run somewhere and slowly chew it. And it chews all day. So it's kind of a quality of satisfaction. Symbolically, the kosher animals, they're kind of satisfied all the time. Even if you didn't feed it for a while, it seems to be chewing all the time. That's the external sign of chewing its cud. If you didn't feed it recently and you see it's always chewing, that means most likely it's a ruminating animal. So the bull is chewing all the time, and the donkey, of course, is not kosher animal. It doesn't chew its cud. So the donkey kind of envies the bull. It thinks that the bull maybe was given some food, and that's why it's chewing. So it suffers because of that. Other possibilities may include the fact that the donkey is a weaker animal, and it's hard for it to work together with an animal that's much stronger. And in general, different animals usually don't like to stay together as much as the animals of the same kind. This is, by the way, a moral lesson that people who don't really like each other, they shouldn't work together, constantly being upset and easily angered. It's better when the partners are people who like each other, who are psychologically compatible. Now, there is a known dispute among the sages whether the biblical prohibition applies when one animal is kosher, one is not, or the biblical prohibition applies all the time, even if you take, let's say, a donkey and a horse, or a bull and a sheep, for instance. It's still biblically prohibited to work on them together. So according to the opinion that the biblical prohibition only applies when one is kosher, one is not, again, the first explanation would make a lot of sense, because one animal is chewing its cud, one isn't chewing its cud, and therefore the animal that's not chewing its cud kind of envies the animal that does chew its cud. Whatever the case may be, this is one of the possible sources for the general prohibition that the Talmud says that Tzaar Baale Chaim Deoraita, that animal suffering is a biblical prohibition. We have to be kind to animals. And of course, the parameters of this, just like anything else, are defined in the halachic works. We shouldn't overdo it. Some of the people today who are pro-animal rights actually are, in a certain sense, against people's rights. You cannot equate the suffering of people to suffering of animals. It's better that a million animals will suffer than one person will suffer. I remember there was a case when a certain lady didn't wash her child well. It was a certain black lady, and her child fell in, I think his name was Isaiah, it was on all the newspapers. He fell in the zoo where the huge gorilla was sitting, or one of those big monkeys. And there was a real danger for the child, and they had to kill the gorilla to save the child. So to a normal person, it's absolutely obvious that the human life is far more important, even if there was a slight possibility, a slight chance that the gorilla may damage the child, even if it doesn't kill the child, but it may damage the child. This is a good enough reason to immediately kill the gorilla. But there were some people, pro-animal rights people, who immediately started screaming about, why they didn't try other methods. I think it's obvious that the person's life is by far more important, and certainly that's the Torah's view. So in some cases, even if the animal will suffer, this is far better than any kind of suffering for the human beings that may happen. But when it's possible to avoid animal suffering, we try to do that. And that's the idea that Tzaar Baale Chaim, we cannot cause animal needless suffering when we can avoid it. And this will teach us and bring within us a good character trait of having a kindness on any living being. And if you like this video, please press like, and if you don't like it, you could press that you don't like it, and please subscribe to our channel.